Oh, it looks like we're live, and thank you to StreamYard because now they give you a little note that says you are live. Before, they would just give you like a little button that comes on. So now we actually get the little live on here. But that's the beauty of technology. We're back here live for a little while here. Maybe we'll put this on Tobacco Road Sports Radio as well after we're done for that show that we just had. Now we have Chris Pizzea, Billy McInerney, the Brute Force, Brad Weiss, and Justin Gianelli. And before I get to college basketball here, Chris had an interesting question here that he put up there with an answer on qualifying offer decisions. Kind of piggybacks off the whole Michael Conforto situation. So thanks for this, Chris. And since the qualifying offer was implemented in 2012, 110 players have received the one-year contract offer from their teams, but only 11 players have accepted the offer, including one of the 14 players who received qualifying offers in the 21 for the 22 season. So in 2021, who accepted Brandon Belt, rejected Nick Castellanos, obviously signed with the Phillies, Carlos Correa, Freddie Freeman, Robbie Ray, Eduardo Rodriguez, Corey Seager, Marcus Simeon, Trevor Story, Noah Syndergaard, also rejected with the same team, Raciel Iglesias, Chris Taylor, he re-signed as well, Justin Verlander, rejected, unsigned, of course, the Michael Conforto, and then accepted in 2020, Marcus Stroman, who I think Justin had mentioned, Kevin Gausman. So after seeing that, so essentially from the math that I saw, it's roughly 1 out of every 10 players accept the qualifying offer.
Yeah.
Based off Chris's article that he threw out there with the history. Anybody have any further thoughts on the qualifying offer situations?
Yeah, I think if I remember right, I think most of the players who accepted it have been like the last couple of years, though. I think the early years of the qualifying offer, no one ever really took it. It wasn't really it's always a significant amount of money. We're talking about Major League Baseball, but it wasn't anywhere near the kind of money that they're getting now on the qualifying offer. They figured back then, go to market, definitely get more money. But, look, Brandon Belt, Kevin Gausman, are you really getting more than $18 million a year in the open market? Probably not. So
no.
I think
well, look what Kevin Gausman parlayed it into this year.
Yeah, he had another great season, but going into when he got the qualifying offer, he wasn't getting anywhere near
of course
the open market.
Right.
And also the first, to Billy's point, 2015 was the first year that players accepted the qualifying offer. Brett Anderson, Colby Rasmus, Matt Wieters, and we had one in 2016. I forgot about this one, Neil Walker, because Neil Walker had a really good first half with the Mets, and then his career kind of went south, if I recall correctly, afterwards. So I forgot about Neil Walker. Yeah, that was an interesting one, who announced his retirement not too long ago. In fact, Brad, you'll chuckle on this. I think I remember when things were so bad during the COVID era, I think we did a show and we talked about Neil Walker announcing his retirement. That was how things were, what they were during the COVID years.
I think we did, yeah.
I think we did. And that was part of the, because I think that was 2 years ago, right around that time. Neil Walker announced his retirement. And of course, also a former Yankee, another interesting Yankee and Met. But anybody have any other thoughts on the whole qualifying offer? Because again, it's one out of every 10 essentially accept this. So, I mean, any other thought on that before I move on?
Not really.
I'm just happy that the draft pick is not connected to it anymore, past this year.
Yep.
So at least, like this year now, Conforto is really getting, he would have definitely got some kind of a deal this year if it wasn't for that draft pick connected to him. So
anybody have any other further thoughts on that before I move on and get to anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Chris. I also think the entirety of a qualifying offer is somewhat ridiculous to begin with. I mean, to the 6 years to get the free agency anyway. It's not. I get it like the NFL where you become a free agent. You can become a free agent after your 4-year rookie year contract is done. You want to a franchise tag, keep a guy, for another couple of years and make sure that you get something out of it for that draft pick. But MLB, you got most guys with the organizations drafted them for 10 years before they're eligible for free agency. So I think the entire qualifying offer seems a little bit ridiculous. I don't know why the Players Association ever agreed to it in the first place. I think there were so many. I don't want to get back into the whole CBA talks, but I think a big issue with this one was the players were sort of trying to make up for all the mistakes they made in the last couple of CBA.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, because that was something I heard on one of the shows I want to say I was listening to overnight. That was a big part of the talks, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, so it's just they never should have agreed to it in the first place. I'm glad at least that the draft pick compensation is going away, but yeah, I would think that you see guys getting their markets depressed. I mean, and I've done it too. I've said I don't want to sign this guy because I don't want to give him the draft pick compensation, especially when we're not Mets look like they're going to be a great team. I don't want to lose a 10th overall pick to sign Michael Kadire. That worked out great for the Mets. So I'm definitely glad that system is changing because it's a bad system.
No question, it's definitely a system that needs some oversight and some changes. And again, Chris, great article on that. I'm sure we'll get more talk about that in the future. And at least we're talking about this rather than a few weeks ago. We didn't even know we would be talking about baseball. We were almost getting ready for USFL draft talks and NFL draft preludes. I mean, we'll get some of that on the Liftoff Jet show, I'm sure, but that's not the only thing to talk about. But I want to get into it at least for a few minutes before we sign off and such, because it is on everybody's minds. And I want to draw this especially to Brad and Justin. And I'll go to Justin first, then Brad, because I know somebody's going to hear this on Instagram and kind of look at us and know what Brad is saying or want to hear what Brad has to say. I mean, for Brad and Justin especially, talk to us about your brackets. Have they finally bursted or what?
Well, thanks to Houston, my first Final Four team was sent by the wayside in Arizona, so I am still down to 3. Kansas with their win over Providence, they have moved on to the Elite Eight, and Duke I have in the Final Four. They moved on by way of victory last night. So, and right now we're in a tight battle, 143 to go, and a tie game. 140 to go, 64-64, North Carolina, UCLA. That is in a battle late.
Well, I'm sure we'll be on the air until that outcome is over with. So, again, I could certainly see, again, Houston was kind of one of those dark horse teams, and Brendan Fitzpatrick and I were talking yesterday on Instagram about Houston, and they're a dark horse, but if you look closely, the last 5 years, they've averaged about 30 wins, and they're a 5 seed. So I know somebody is dying to hear this, especially when I post this on Instagram. I mean, the Rufus, how's that bracket doing?
It's going down the gutter and into the drain. But what I will say though is it's not yet crumbled. It's still in peace. And the reason why it's in peace is because my final 2 teams are UCLA and Kansas. Now, right now, we got to hope that UCLA holds on here in this close game.
UNC just hit a 3 at 67-64.
That don't help. So, listen, I had Texas Tech making the Final Four. They did not beat Duke in a close game. I had Arizona. Obviously, we just mentioned that. So those 2 teams are out, but the 2 teams that are in are still Kansas and hopefully UCLA, although right now we're in some dangerous waters. But ultimately, the team I did pick to win the whole thing was Kansas. I think I'm feeling kind of confident on that right now. And if that does happen, at least I can hang my hat on something that went right with this bracket, that I picked the team that won. So that's the current stage. But just to be honest, listen, my bracket was terrible. Probably not winning anything. But what I will say is I got to be honest. And, I just told you guys before I got on the show, I was just at a restaurant with a lot of St. Peter's fans and happy people.
And I was looking at Rico's, by the way. I got to mention this because I got a lighter subject. Rico's did look good, I have to say.
Yeah.
Rico's pizza looked good. And if I'm not mistaken, Barstool's Dave Portnoy reviewed Rico's.
Yes,
so Rico's looks good. I got to be honest. I'm going to get in so much trouble for this. All-American Burger, I'm not that, motivated for, but I saw Rico's. Rico's looked promising. That looked promising.
No, listen, today was my first day taste test. I'll give a shout out once again to a guy who said he's watching because I told him I would give him a shout out, is James Cronin, and also my friend James DeSimone of Clark. He was there.
We love James DeSimone. I think he just followed me on Instagram, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, James was there as well. It was just a bunch of people who we've all connected there, and they all.
I gotta ask though, on a funnier note, when you order your pizza, I hope you're not one of those guys that wants it burnt.
No. Now, I'm gonna be quite honest, all right, and I'm gonna get in big trouble, all right, because he has been a guest on this show. James's good friend Jason Getz, who is sitting
Jason, our buddy Jason
beside
Getz.
me.
Where is Jason Getz tonight, by the way? Where is he?
So he's fully into baseball right now. But listen, the one thing he has, and again, he's gonna kill me when I say this, but listen, he believes in this hard. Is his favorite part of the pizza is the crust, and
you know what? I'm the same way, man. The crust is supposed to be the best.
You see, I just don't like that. And the one thing I like about Rico's is that there's really not much of a crust. It's pizza, so it's thin.
To be fair,
pizza
it's
with
thin
a thin
crust. Well, that's Joe, but Joe and Pat's is the thin crust. Staten Island is known for the thin crust.
Listen,
I'm not a thin crust guy, by the way. I've never been a thin cruster.
And this is a franchise place too, Rico's.
Yeah. So they got a high score from Dave Portnoy. So listen.
It still look good though. Rico's look promising. All American Burger, I feel like is going to be like no different than Five Guys. I just feel like it's Long Island's versus Five Guys.
Whoa.
Listen, I got to be honest because I'll let Chris go in a second. I got to be honest because I've taken 2 trips to Duffy's in Staten Island, and I do understand that Tom is kind of spoiled. That's a good burger. So I got to say. It's going to be a little bit of maybe a letdown for him in regards to that.
Rico didn't look like a letdown, but Chris, jump in because again, I'm trying this All American burger.
No, I've had that and it's greasy. It's no, I don't like that place at all.
Which place? Five Guys?
Five, yeah, I'm not a Five Guys fan at all.
But All American Burger, you've had, Chris.
Yes,
and All American Burger's okay. You saying?
Yes, absolutely.
All right,
it's worth it if you're coming to Long Island.
I'm coming. I said I'm coming already. I'm on the record.
They're
coming.
Like 15 minutes away. The Rico's in this place. So
Rico's look promising. Listen, I know people are like, "Why is he talking food?" But I mean, listen, it's a topic. I mean, what do you want me to tell you? I mean, I talk about all different things here, and I'm looking at some of the scores here because I saw Justin's reactions here. We've got UNC North Carolina's up 5 now with 15 seconds. How did we get there, real quick, Justin?
Caleb Love hit a game-tying 3 at 64, go-ahead 3 at 67, 64, and then they missed another 3, but they put it back. They put the tip in, and it was 69, 64, and UCLA just got a quick layup, so it's 69, 66 with 9.6 left.
All right, so we're going to play the free throw contest here pretty much.
Yeah, basically, unless UCLA can get a steal here.
All right, well, we're going to
UCLA now is out of timeouts.
Well, I gotta say quickly, Tom, because we have our great North Carolina listeners on this show. We got to give a shout out because they're going to have 2 of their teams here. Duke and UNC both in this picture here with the Elite Eight. So,
of course, for the Final Four.
Yeah. So I mean, listen, those people from North Carolina, they got to be pretty happy right now. And listen, I know North Carolina hasn't won yet, but both of these teams have been real good in this tournament. So. What a surprise! Just the 2 teams.
I was surprised though. I didn't think that both teams would be in the Elite Eight right now. And also, quick other update: Miami is up 8 over Iowa State, 43-35. 13 minutes left here. And I had one other college basketball question before I move on here and go to a few other topics before we get out of here. And Justin and Brad might have saw this story. I don't know if you had, but there was a story I saw in the New York City college sports fans group that I'm actually a part of with the Brooklyn Cowbell, Daniel Weiss. I know, Brad, you probably know him. And the story was actually at the NIT, the National Invitational Tournament, was actually leaving Madison Square Garden after this year. I don't know if you saw that story, either Justin or Brad. And if you did, what was your thoughts on that? Because the NIT used to be a really big deal. And from what I've heard from different people, they have to tape off the seats at the Garden. And it's essentially, you almost can give away these seats. You just can't give them away and nobody shows up. I mean, is that a big deal at all to either you guys, if you heard about the story or not?
I mean, I'll say this quickly. I mean, listen, the NIT, I just don't really think that people are as amused or as excited for the NIT. Like, I really think that March Madness has taken over as basically not only obviously what everybody's watching, but also what everyone's betting on. And I think the money aspect of it and the betting and all that has really distracted people from watching the NIT and some of these other invitationals that they have at the end of the year. So, again, and listen, the attendance at NIT games, that's definitely a concern. If you're not getting people to the Garden, you're not going to be there very long.
Well, they're not even getting people at the Garden, the point was. In fact, I shouldn't even say this, but there's somebody I know who's actually a college basketball player at Columbia University. His name is Liam Murphy. He is a legend in my neighborhood. He was actually looking to buy tickets for like $10. That's the NIT. We're talking about the championship.
Yeah, no, listen, and I can attest to this because I'm actually a proud New York Liberty fan, and
we've talked about that in the past.
My good buddy, of course, that John Gonzalez always has to allude to, James Dolan, okay, basically kicked them out of Madison Square Garden because of what money they were getting from the Liberty. So luckily, Joe Tsai decided to step up and take them. But ultimately, listen, James Dolan kicked the Liberty out because they weren't able to make that much money on their games. The NIT not making too much money and not getting people in the seats to these games. I'm not surprised that they're moving the venue from Madison Square Garden. And I'll say you something, Tom. I mean, there's one thing that won't move, and that's the Big East tournament. I mean, that tournament does well every year.
Oh, I hope they don't move the Big East tournament, because the Big East tournament, in some ways, to me, is almost bigger than the NIT. Maybe even it is bigger, certainly in attendance figures. And we have a final here that is the North Carolina Tar Heels have defeated the UCLA Bruins 71-66 here to advance to the Elite Eight, and they will play. Do we have a confirmed time on that, Justin? What time they'll play on Sunday?
5:05.
5:05. All right. So
I believe it'll be the second game on Sunday.
All right.
And then, Miami or Iowa State will get Kansas in the early portion.
So they'll get the 2:30 game. CBS has a 2:30 window. All right. So that means by 5:05 I know where I got to be, and that's watching the latter game of Sunday. But those are some things here. We were on Sportswire Radio, and of course, if you like what you hear from us, you can listen to us anytime on sportnarium.com/player, and 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days. You can listen to all of our great content, like the Talking Rivals, the Liftoff Jets, the Baseball Banter Show, and of course our DJs like DJ Slippy and obviously Addy, and also Larry Frank and Frankly Speaking Sports. And that guy's a character. You want to talk about characters, Larry Frank. If anybody's heard Larry Frank on the air, whether it's through Twitter or Facebook, he's definitely Frankly Speaking Sports. You can catch him Monday to Wednesdays here at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Ernest Dove, also we get shows from him throughout the week. He's been giving us some great content. And also I will be on a show tomorrow night, 10 o'clock Eastern Time. The Work in Progress. We'll be watching WWF Superstars. I'm sure I'll be speaking a lot about Scott Hall, the bad guy, and Triple H, and many other memories as well in the pro wrestling world. So be on the lookout for that. I got about another 15 or 20 minutes or so. And I want to go back to Billy McInerney here, because I want to go back to the NHL for a second, the New York Rangers, because I really find the NHL so fascinating right now. And Billy, obviously, with the season coming down to a pike, and I know that we went and talked about the trade deadline to kick things off here, but finish this sentence for me. For the New York Rangers to advance deep into the postseason, what do they need?
They need, let's see. They need, I think they need Adam Fox to bring out the funk he's been in a little bit the last few games. He hasn't been playing badly. He's not quite up to standards. I think they need their depth players that they acquire to play big roles. And they need to really, really hope that Igor Shesterkin doesn't get hurt, I would say, is the most important thing in that. Yeah, I mean, look, like we said, I think they're a good team. I think they're probably still, Alex Lafreniere's got a 5-game point streak, but, he's bounced around the lineup a lot. Capo Caco's been out for a long time.
Well, that was my next follow-up question. You stole that. You stole my follow-up.
He had wrist surgery. The hope is he'll be back before the playoffs, but he started out day to day, and it's been 3 months now, so you have to wonder,
That reminds me, does anybody remember when I think it was Jose Reyes that got injured one year for the Mets, and it turned into it was supposed to be a week, and it turned into 4 months.
Yeah, I mean, look at Justin with the Nets. Ben Simmons still hasn't made his debut yet.
Well, Ben Simmons, I heard in that for my NBA guys, he's got a herniated disc apparently. And that's the reason why he's not in the lineup. I mean, so that kind of solves the whole Ben Simmons issue, right? I mean,
Yeah,
that's what I heard.
Does it solve it? Because I
You
know
got a herniated disc. I mean, Brad, I know you had injuries. Did you have a herniated disc at St. Joe's? I covered you. I don't remember you having a herniated
I didn't
disc.
have a herniated disc, but I had some injuries. But listen, you know what?
You
We'll
didn't
say
have a herniated disc, mister.
we'll say he has a herniated disc. But listen, I mean, did this have this? What I want to know, and I know Justin and I really don't know the answer to this, but did this happen before or after he got to the Brooklyn Nets? Because everyone's saying it happened when he got there, but I mean, how are you the Brooklyn Nets right now? You traded for this guy, and he's not even playing. He might not even play in the playoffs.
I don't think he can play in the playoffs. He's got a herniated disc. How is he going to be able to play? That doesn't.
They still expect him back before the season ends.
But he's got a herniated disc, though.
I mean, apparently he was feeling well enough to fly on the team plane to Miami.
Yeah,
This is bizarre. This has to be one of
It's
those
the first time he's gotten on a plane with the Nets. The only other road games he was at was Philadelphia and when they played the Knicks at Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, and when he went to Philadelphia, he threw a dunk down before the game. I mean, come on now, herniated disc. I understand. I get it. It's a legitimate injury, but Ben Simmons, come on, man. You had so much time off, and now you got an injury, and now the Nets can't count on you. It's just bad. I would be a little bit upset. I mean, I know the Nets got so much more out of that trade, more than Ben Simmons. That's going to help them.
Ultimately, I think Drummond and Curry are pretty good returns on that.
Yeah, I think that they're not going to. But the big prize was supposed to be Ben Simmons. The fact he's not on the court is a major disappointment.
Oh, no question about it. And very quickly, thanks to the crack staff for giving us this here. And when it comes to the NBA standings in the Eastern Conference right now, the Brooklyn Nets are 8th. They are behind the Toronto Raptors by 3 games, along with the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Bulls are in the 5th spot. So the Nets are 4 games out of 5th. And then you've got a basically 4-way logjam between Miami, Milwaukee, Philadelphia, and Boston. You've got the Hornets half a game behind the Nets. You've got the Hawks lurking a game and a half behind. And those New York Knicks are 5 games behind of 10th. So they're 5 out with 8 to go. They're pretty much on life support. The Knicks
pretty much. Oh, please. Oh, please. Come on, son. Their season is over. All right?
Well, they're mathematically alive.
Oh, God. You see Tom Bryce. I cannot listen to that. I cannot listen to that because
your father pretty much said what I just said like an hour ago when he came on.
Oh, I mean, listen, everybody's giving me all this ranting and raving about, we won 2 straight games. We beat the Hornets on the road. We beat Miami on the road.
I think it's 4 out of 5 now. I think it's 4 of the last 5.
Yeah, and it's ironic, too, that most of them came without Julius Randle. Knicks, why don't you take some notes and pay attention and see that maybe that getting rid of Julius Randle should be number 1 priority in the offseason. Get rid of him. I personally, at this moment, am hoping really badly the New York Knicks can find a trade partner for Julius Randle. He is a bad leader. He's just a guy who I do not want on this team. He is a crybaby. He's unclutch. And at this point, it's time for him to go because it looks like the team is better off without him ultimately. And I do think that, even though I'm bashing the Knicks, it was 2 nice wins. Miami, listen, we got to hope everything's all right. They had a little bit of a fight the last game in the huddle, and now they just lost another game where they were winning against the Knicks and they lost. So they got to pick.
Miami again is in a dogfight. I just mentioned it from 1 through 4. 4 teams, 1 game separated by. So that's
some people are arguing, and I'll say this to Justin Gianelli. Some people are arguing that Miami is losing these games, not per se on purpose, but they're not incentivizing winning because they don't want to see the Nets in the first round. So there is that theory going around.
Load management again. Load management.
I mean, listen, Tyler Hero sat out the last 2 games, but that's been due to injury as well. But I don't think, knowing Miami's culture, I don't think they're losing games. I think they're actually just on a little bit of a skid. But, ultimately for the Brooklyn Nets, I mean, you got Kyrie back full time. You got Kevin Durant. I mean, you want to see a struggling Miami Heat team right now? I mean, I don't think the Brooklyn Nets are scared of that. I think the Brooklyn Nets actually want to play the 76ers. That's actually
I don't think we're scared of Philly either. You see what we did in Philly?
Well, I know you guys want to play them, and it's more than just basketball, obviously. But, listen, we'll see. But the Nets as an 8 seed, and I think they'll get out of that tournament. They're going to be quite scary as an 8 seed. And even the Toronto Raptors, who have won 3 or 4 straight games.
Well, the
they're
Raptors, you know what? They had a little bit of a slide.
Let's think about it this way. If the Nets win the 7-8 matchup, if they win that game, they're the 7 seed.
Right.
So, the top either or. The only benefit of being in the 7-8 is you get a mulligan if you lose, and then you play the winner of the 9-10.
Correct. Yep.
So,
Well, I mean, those are certainly some things to look at here and going off.
I want if the Nets can't get the 7 seed, I want the Toronto Raptors to get the 6 seed. Because remember, Kyrie still cannot play.
They're a game behind Cleveland, so it's definitely doable.
Kyrie cannot play in Toronto still.
Right.
So if the Nets played the Cavaliers, now no matter where it's located, Kyrie can play for the play-in.
Is there anybody else that's unvaccinated on any other team, or nobody?
Not that I know of. I know that the league's 95% vaccinated. I know Andrew Wiggins was an issue before the season started, but he got vaccinated because he wouldn't have been able to play home games in San Francisco at the Chase Center.
Right. Yeah, Kyrie Irving's the only notable name that really everyone knows is obviously unvaccinated. I don't think there's any other superstar or star player of note.
We would have never known him in baseball. We might have had that. We might have had that for our Mets and Yankees. We might have certainly had
the only other notable name, and it's not come up recently because he's been out for the last 2-3 months, is Bradley Beal.
Yes. Mm-hmm. But they're not going to be in the playoffs either. So
No, they're not going to be in the playoffs. And I just want to, before I get out of here and get some closing thoughts and a few other things from everybody, Western Conference standings in the middle of the standings here, pretty much from 4 to 7, you've got 2.5 games separating each other. You've got Utah and Brendan Fitzpatrick's Dallas Mavericks, 45-29. Denver, 43-31. They're in the 6th spot. Minnesota, one of the big surprises, half a game behind, then 8, 9, 10, and 11. I'll throw in 12 begrudgingly with Portland because they're mathematically alive. Clippers are pretty much comfortably locked in that 8th spot, 32-38, 4.5 games ahead of the Pelicans and Lakers. And then right behind them, you've got the Spurs, 2 games back. You've got Portland, 3.5 back from the Lakers and the Pelicans. And then pretty much everybody else is kind of out on the rival there. I mean, Sacramento is 5.5 back, but 3-7 their last 10 games. I don't see anything there, and pretty much.
I think the only thing interesting is, can Denver hold on to that 6th seed? Because they're only a half game up on Minnesota right now, and Minnesota's been, again, like you said, a pleasant surprise.
7 of the last 10 games they've won, and they've played pretty well most of the year.
You could definitely start to put, I don't know if there's a clear-cut favorite for Coach of the Year. I mean, Monty Williams. Maybe because he was a finalist last year, and look at the team the Suns have had. They locked up the 1 seed.
You got a lot of good candidates this year.
But you got to give a lot of credit to not only Taylor Jenkins of the Memphis Grizzlies, but how about Chris Finch of the Minnesota Timberwolves?
Yes.
Look at the way they've this is not a team that's often in the playoffs either. So.
What's it been? I think 1 playoff appearance since 2004, if I'm not mistaken. It was one.
Yeah, it was I think 17, 18, or 18, 19.
Thibodeau got them 1 year. I think they were 7th or 8th, something like that.
Yeah.
Right. I think I don't even know if they won again. I think they got swept.
Yeah.
No.
One playoff appearance. I think it's 1 playoff appearance and 2 winning seasons in the last 18 seasons. And then I just want to go over to the NHL standings and get maybe Chris and Billy's thoughts in here before we get out of here. And the Atlantic Division, we've got Florida 7 points ahead of Toronto and Boston. Tampa Bay, the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champions, have fallen back a little bit. They're 8 points back. For you guys in the Atlantic Division, you see any movement there? Or you think that Florida looks locked in that? There's still a lot of time, but usually in this league, the rule of thumb is if you are anything more than 6 points back because of the convoluted NHL point system, it's kind of hard to overcome that. But for both you guys, you see any changes there, at least at the top with Florida? You think Florida remains there after the moves they've made in the Atlantic Division for you guys?
Yeah, I think they got a nice enough lead where I think they're pretty comfortable. I'm sure Billy feels the same way.
Yeah, I will be surprised if they don't have the best record in the conference with all said and done, to be honest.
Well, it's them in Carolina. Obviously, Carolina has one more game in hand, and they are 1 point back. And obviously, in the Metropolitan Division, we've got 3 teams chasing each other here, although Carolina has a couple games in hand, and that is obviously the Carolina Hurricanes at first place, 91 points, Pittsburgh, 88 points, Rangers, 87. There's
I
still a
don't
lot
think
of
that
movement there.
it may flip around.
That's going to definitely flip around.
Those 3 might flip around in some way, shape, or form. But those are going to be the 3 teams.
Yeah, definitely.
I still think Tampa could jump either Boston or Toronto and end up in the top 3 in the Atlantic.
No question.
Division. I did expect them to, but I don't see Washington being able to make that move.
Yeah, I think
place.
Washington.
I don't think I have
5 points back. They've got 1 game more that they've played than the Rangers. They've got the same amount of games as Pittsburgh. That's going to be tricky. And if you're playing along, if you're an Islanders fan, because you've got 4 games in hand, you're 17 points back with 4 games in hand. It's not happening, even if you win those games. But I don't think that's happening.
They'd legitimately have to win the last 17 games.
Washington's going to have to lose a bunch.
The Islanders, and I said this at the top before Brad came in here. We'll get closing thoughts after this. The Islanders, to me, have to win 17 of like the last 20. They have to go like 17-2-1 and pray. And I don't know if they're going to go 17-2-1 and pray. That's mathematically impossible. I don't see it happening. In the Western Conference, very quickly, I'd like to go over the playoff there. You have Colorado way in command. We knew that was going to happen. Then we've got a log jam there. Got a bunch of teams. Minnesota's there in second. You've got St. Louis, who acquired, of course, our old friend Nick Leddy, Chris, and they're 1 point back. You've got the Predators there. They're also 1 point back, 2 games in hand of the Blues. You've got Dallas, team we've talked about. Can't really figure them out. They're 75 points. They've got 2 games in hand over the Predators, same amount of games as the Blues. Winnipeg, if you want to consider them, they're still sort of involved. Then you've got in the Pacific Division, Calgary, it's definitely going to be their year. They're 7 points ahead of the Kings. I mean, Billy, Kings to me have, I think, been maybe one of the biggest surprises in the NHL. I can't figure that one out.
No, they're well ahead of schedule, I think.
Well ahead. I mean, I didn't even think, listen, looking at the standings, I didn't even think they'd be ahead of, frankly, Vancouver.
And you look, I'm bringing it up now, I mean, right, because the year the Rangers got Lexi Lafreniere, the Kings took Quentin Byfield, he has 7 points this year. He's not making a big impact. It's just they're getting a really good season from, Quick and Doughty and Kopitar kind of turned the clock back a little bit, and
Dustin Brown's been good too.
Yeah.
It gives a surprise, and you look at their goal differential. They're only 5 goals more than they've allowed. So it's really a team that's won these games, and kind of like you just said. And you've got Edmonton again. Edmonton always kind of in the middle there. You've got Vegas, which, again, I really can't figure out Vegas. They've definitely been one of the more disappointing teams despite where they are.
I will say, not that I expect them to make a run for the top. I think Calgary is going to be pretty set in winning the Pacific Division, but I think Edmonton's a team I would not want to see in the postseason.
Well, right now they're third. Right now they're technically.
I just wouldn't. Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl are.
Well, Kings Oilers. I mean, listen,
they are two of the
matchup for you.
They are two of the best players in the league, and I would have no interest in facing them if I had that. You look at how tight the Central is. Aside from Colorado pulling away from the pack, 17 points up. But I mean, Minnesota, St. Louis, Nashville, and Dallas all separated by 5 points.
And if you want to throw in there Winnipeg, I mean, if you want to throw them in,
Winnipeg's not out of it, but I think they're having to leapfrog too many teams. I think that becomes an issue.
The games hurt them.
I think it really comes down to Minnesota, St. Louis, Nashville, and Dallas jockeying for those 2 spots. and then one of them has to. If they all four of them want to make the playoffs, they're gonna have to hold off.
Well, I got news for you right now. Nashville's the first wild card, and the second wild card is Dallas because Dallas.
That's what I'm saying. Right now, the four teams right behind the Avalanche in the division are all in a playoff position.
I think the other thing you look at.
The only thing is they'll have to hold off Vegas, and will Vegas be able to get it together in time to keep the playoff streak alive?
Here's a question though: can Vegas field their roster right now? I'm sure if you saw the Evgeny Dadonov trade, for those who are aware, they tried to trade Evgeny Dadonov to create cap space, and the trade arm getting voided because he had Ducks on his no trade list. It took like 3 days for some reason because apparently there's no central registry of no trade list at the league. I hope that changes soon. Apparently the league still does trades via fax, so I don't know what's going on there.
I want to know who owns a fax machine still. Does anybody
apparently the NHL and their teams do, but
does anybody remember when you had the fax machine? You had to dial the number, and you had to hope the paper got. I remember when I was in college, you'd have to like fax over things. And I used to remember going to a little candy store, like having to put the phone number in, and then you'd have to make the paper page centered. I mean, and I'm not old. I mean, I'm not like a Rob Oscar. I mean, it's kind of funny to me that the fax machine's almost like the payphone. That's to me, like I didn't even realize that they still do fax machines. I mean, does anybody even own a fax machine? That's what I almost even want to know. Anybody own a fax? Brad, have you ever even used a fax machine before, Brad?
So I'm actually going to be honest with you because you guys would be surprised. I actually have used a fax machine. It was at my former job, and I was just disgusted by it because
I used to hate using a fax machine.
I
used to hate using it, and I used to always, for whatever reason, get yelled at because I would not put in so much paper, and then it would always come back. The fax didn't go through because I would only put like 3 pages of paper like in the fax machine. And those days, I mean, are just certainly that's a relic. That's all I'll say here before we get out of here. That's the fax machines. I don't even know why anybody uses them. To me, it's almost like the payphones. Who would even use a payphone or the beepers? The beepers was the other one. I mean, I didn't own a beeper. I don't know if anybody actually owned a beeper on here. I didn't own one. I think my father might. You had a beeper, Chris? You had one? Yeah, those things were they were like it sounded like that almost just now.
Yeah,
those beepers.
Just about.
I think my father might have had a beeper. I think he might have, but other than that, I mean, I just couldn't. To me, that's kind of the way of the land here. But obviously, that's some of the standings here. And before we get out of here, is anything else on anybody's mind they would like to share before we sign off here for the evening and into the morning? Anything else on anybody's mind? I know Brad's going to have a thought or two, but for anybody else, I'll give them the floor.
I just seen something on Twitter. It was like really horrible news. It's in music. It's not sports. But
talk to me. I'll probably know it. Go ahead.
Taylor Hawkins, the drummer from the Foo Fighters, has passed away.
Really?
Wow.
And how? Let me guess. 52.
50. Just 50.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
They said no cause of death yet. So.
Wow,
it's just
50.
horrible, man. I'm actually supposed to see them in a couple of months.
Well, I don't think you're seeing them now, right?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what they're going to do.
Postponement.
This is horrible.
Wow, 50.
They were supposed to. They were saying it. I think they had a concert this weekend.
Do you know the irony of that? That I believe that this past because I was in why is everything revolve around Duffy's? But one of our listeners, I was in Duffy's with Steve Solanke. Steve's the guy with the big head. Interesting guy. But Lincoln Park came on in Chester Bennington, and this past week was, I believe, the 5-year anniversary or close to it of Chester Bennington's death. So I mean, boy, that's kind of.
He died in. I believe he died in July.
Okay, because I know why.
I remember I was supposed to go see him.
With Stone Temple Pilots.
No, I was supposed to see him. I was supposed to see Lincoln Park. They were playing at Citi Field that month.
Yes, they were
in July.
Okay.
It was oh shoot, who else
wasn't it? Them?
3 Days Grace.
No.
Why do I feel like Fall Out Boy was involved in that?
I was close.
Was Green Day involved in that too, or was that a separate concert?
No. Oh man, what was that? That was a few years ago. It was
I know what you're talking.
an old classic rap band was going to play with them too.
A Tribe Called Quest.
I believe so. It was like it was like 3 or 4 bands playing.
The Tribe Called Quest would have made sense because they had an album right around that time that came
like
out
5 years ago, right?
Yeah, it might have been them. I
it was right around that. It was like it was within the month that they were going to perform that he passed away. It was like within 2 weeks or 3 weeks of that show.
Wow, 50 years old though. Taylor Hawkins. Wow. I mean, I definitely didn't see that one coming. No. Wow, 50. Yep, I see it right here. Dead at 50, according to Rolling Stone. Taylor Hawkins, dead at 50. Wow. I mean, that's definitely puts life into perspective. Only 50 years old. That's just terrible news here. I mean, only 50. I mean, it's ironically, Ozzy's still alive. You think about Ozzy Osbourne, and Ozzy's still alive.
God bless that man.
I don't know how he's alive. I mean, I don't know if anybody's an Ozzy fan or if you've at least seen the Osbournes before, but he's 73, and what that guy, the debauchery he was involved in, he's alive.
This is it right here.
Okay, what do you got?
That was the show that was supposed to happen.
Okay, Live Nation, that makes sense.
Blink-182.
Blink-182, that was the other band.
And Blink-182, well, the drummer is very famous for certainly other reasons. If anybody's been following, he's more famous now for those who might be listening to this on Tobacco Road Sports Radio tomorrow. He's more famous certainly for not his drumming capabilities anymore. He's famous for who his significant other may be.
Oh, who is it?
Kourtney Kardashian.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. I thought you were going to say something about, didn't he was in a really bad accident.
He was in that accident, and he wouldn't fly up until this past summer. He didn't fly for I think it was 13 or 14 years.
It's been a while.
And he flew because, well, his significant other is Kourtney Kardashian. I don't want to say anymore, but fill in the blanks. That's all you gotta say on that. And and he's actually the drummer now for Machine Gun Kelly, whose significant other is also pretty famous as well, and her name's Megan Fox. So you might have heard of Megan Fox. I'm not going to say anything further than that and not incriminate myself, because I know that people left and right listen to the shows, and I actually get calls from people that say they've heard the show and yada yada yada. So I don't want to say anything that would do anything, but I do want to say I am very, very sorry for all the fans of the Foo Fighters, for Taylor Hawkins certainly passing away at the age of 50. Just horrible news. Only 50 years old. I mean, listen, just terrible news. I mean, Scott Hall, we did a whole soliloquy on Sportswire Radio last week, but he was 63. 50's a little younger than 63. But let's try to end on a lighter note. I mean, Brad, you have anything you want to share? Anything before we get out? I know you always have something to say. I mean, I might have a feeling I know what it is, but the floor is yours.
Yeah, well, there's always something that the brute force has to say, of course, or that's on my mind. But I want to take this moment because we did it here on the Sports Report. Tom, you did it a few days ago, but I really want to come on this show and thank Ryan Terrell for reposting our story with us speaking about him and his journey with Brendan Fitzpatrick and everything. So his clip on our Instagram page generated one of the highest views as we've ever had on Instagram on our clips. And it was nice of him to repost it. It's also nice of him to consider coming on our show here in the next month or so. So I'm looking forward to that. I think Ryan, obviously, like I said the first time, I'm very hopeful that he becomes the first Orthodox Jew to play in the NBA. I really am rooting him on. He's a great kid, was a great competitor at Yeshiva. As much as everybody actually had somebody come up to me and say, I saw the video of you getting dunked on by Ryan Terrell. I said I didn't have a comment. But ultimately, he's a great kid, a great competitor. And I guess if there's anyone that I wanted to be dunked on, it would be him, because he's going to be really famous and popular. So
he already is famous. He's already famous.
Exactly.
So points in the game this year, bro.
Exactly. So I'm just proud of him, and I can't thank him enough for taking his time and obviously reposting that for us and getting us a great amount of views. So thank you, Ryan. And I also obviously want to take this time as well to shout out the same guys that Tom Bryce did earlier, our newcomers here on the Brew Crew. I'm definitely excited, and I'm a little worried about my roster spot. as we
Are
continue.
you
to
even
grow.
going to start on Sunday, considering who we brought
Listen,
in?
I think so. I should have my first base or catcher position, or even my DH potentially. But I should get my spot. But listen, when you bring in guys, like John LaRocca, I mean, that's another great player.
He's a legit player. He's a legit
Legitimate player, who's going to be an outfield starter for us. You talk about Ronmel Ocampo. I believe I know a friend of his from Queens College. And speaking of Queens College, it could be somewhere where I might be going back to school soon. So it's a shout out to Queens College, as I might have made a decision on my next chapter of my life. Not sure yet, but I do think that it's coming. So shout out to Queens College, and Ronmel, he's going to be another great player for us. We got, Bobby Lewis, you mentioned. Seems like a really fun kid. Was a great pitcher at MacArthur High School, which is not too far down the road in Levittown, right down the street from Rico's. So another great kid who had a great career. And then Cole Masler, who was called up from our AAA affiliate, we like to call with the Brew Crew, which is the Sky Bison, who play in another softball league. And he got called up from the AAA affiliate, and he's ready to fill in for us. So, listen, I think I got a guaranteed contract on the Major League Softball level with the Brew Crew, but if I don't, I might be getting sent down to the minors. So I hope that I can get off to a good start this season, hit some home runs, and have some fun over at Wantoa Park this weekend against Baldwin, who I'll be very motivated to beat after, of course, we don't need to talk about what happened in the county.
Yeah, we won't mention that a couple weeks ago. No,
so I'll take my anger a little bit out on them on Sunday when I hit some home runs. So looking forward to it. Excited for Brew Crew season. The last thing I'll say is that the Brew Crew, of course, who I'm repping the sweatshirt, is always proudly represented and sponsored by our friends who are on this shoulder at Ridgewood Station Tavern of Wantoa, where you can get a great bite and also a great thing to eat, as well as some
That's
great.
next on my bucket list. I will definitely make an appearance. I've got a lot of things I'm owed to make appearances for. That's on the list as well.
Yeah, right down the road.
And they're a good place. Ridgewood Station Tavern is a good place.
Sunrise, Ridgewood Station Tavern. They do a great job. They sponsor our team. They got us some new gear as well for this season, so we want to give them a shout out if you want a great bite to eat. Also, they have some great television screens. You can watch some of your favorite games, some of the best drinks around. So Ridgewood Station Tavern. Check them out on Instagram, searching at Ridgewood_Station_Tavern, and also visit their website, which you can find at RidgewoodStationTavern.com. So definitely excited for that, and thanks to Ridgewood Station Tavern always for sponsoring the Brew Crew, whose seasons start this Sunday.
Looking forward to all of that, and I do need to bring out my Brew Crew sweater because now it's getting cold again, so I may have to break that sweater out here for Sunday and into Monday. So I definitely want to acknowledge the team, and again, please follow them on Instagram at LI Brew Crew. Also, Ridgewood Station Tavern as well. Please follow on Instagram. They do a phenomenal job. I love. When it comes to a burger, when it comes to a meal, definitely I can guarantee to recommend Ridgewood Station Tavern. Before we close out here tonight, I do one more time want to thank Ryan Terrell, of course, the legendary Yeshiva Maccabees men's basketball star, who already is a star, and he will go out and do some really, really big things in the world. And for the fact that he shared what we had to say about him is definitely monumental, and it's very special, and is a tremendous honor for somebody of his ilk, his status, his fame. Somebody to share what we had to say is a really, really big deal. And obviously, I can't thank him enough for that opportunity. I cannot thank him enough for him even doing that and acknowledging us, because a lot of people of Mr. Terrell's status would certainly look at us, and while we might be known in circles, would not even acknowledge. So the fact that he did that, I certainly am grateful, and I want everybody to follow him on Instagram at Ryan Terrell 11 and congratulate him on the first chapter of his basketball career, of course, with the Yeshiva Maccabees. I also want to thank the SID there, AJ O'Halligan, I think it is, right? AJ O'Halligan, I think it is. Also, of course, Coach Steinmetz and the entire program there on all the things that they have done. So I can't thank them enough. And we were on Sportswire Radio tonight. I want to thank everybody that is tuned in. I want to thank, of course, Justin Gianelli of the Baseball Banter Show, Chris Bizea of the Liftoff Jets and the Talking Rivals Show, Billy McInerney, formerly of Elite Sports, the Brute Force Brad Weiss of the aforementioned LI Brew Crew, the Level Up Basketball Organization, the Long Island Nets, the legendary SJC, Long Island Golden Eagles men's basketball alum, and also from our Plainview JFK Hawks boys JV team. And I am the host of the Sports Report and the station manager here of Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryce. And if you're on sportarium.com/player, you will get the sit-down marks to return because they will talk wrestling for over 3 hours. And that'll kill all the time I need overnight to fill any content. We'll also have a brand new show from Ammo and Danny at some point also overnight. And we'll have some brand new shows from the Liftoff Jets. We have a Bobby Tats Pinstripe Chronicles special we need to play. And Neil Villapiano gave us a show from the Devil's State of Mind and a few other shows. So you can check all that great content all throughout Sportswire Radio. And I'll be on tomorrow night again, 10 p.m. with the A Work in Progress guys, Piles and the Mayor of Canton. So I want to thank them. So thank you, everybody, for watching and listening here on Sportswire Radio. I am the host of the Sports Report and the station manager here of Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryce, again with Chris Bizea, Billy McInerney, Justin Gianelli, and the Brute Force Brad Weiss. Thank you, everyone. Good night, and we'll talk with you soon. We'll be on Tobacco Road Sports Radio tomorrow, 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and Linda and Mac McGrath's Northeast Streaming Sports Channel on Roku, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. You can catch us on nessp.info anytime for more information. Also, talkingrivals.com. Thank you, everyone. Good night.